So here we are on May 10th, Saturday Sangha with Pacific Northwest Meditation. And we have the joy of being at the beginning of celebrating Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And if you have any interest in seeing what's happening in Portland there, or it might be anywhere as well, but the library, the Multnomah County Library has various listings of events. And it's a good time to celebrate. It began, and I believe I said before, 1990. But there was a big push quite a few years ago when there were those murders in Atlanta, Georgia, at the spas that pretty much targeted Asian women. And I started celebrating then when I began showing the YouTube videos of what was going on with all of the monks and nuns that came together in acknowledgement of that in the Berkeley, Oakland area. So you might think of that this month and just acknowledge. For me, I was just in Hawaii last week, which was wonderful. I got to hang around a lot of my friends and be around a lot of different cultures of people, which I always love. So today's talk is about craving less, loving more, and right intention on the path. We're walking on this noble path, finding the right intention with sometimes a few wrong turns along the way. The Buddha's Eightfold Path is, to me, it's like a spiritual GPS. It guides us from the chaos of suffering toward the quiet joy of liberation. And it's not a pick one and you're good kind of thing. Each step supports the others like spokes on the wheel. So I guess we should get this out of the way right off the bat, and that is that if right intention were on social media, it would have the fewest followers. It's not flashy, it's not offering beachy mindfulness vibes or promising to manifest your dream job by next week. It's quiet, it's humble, but it's powerful. And it's the second step on the Noble Eightfold Path. I'm talking about the second step today because when Alpesh Parikh and I were talking about his topic coming up, well, actually he's coming to teach in 2 weeks, but in June he and I were talking about this, and he wanted to talk about the first step on the Eightfold Path. So I decided to start with the second step so that we could sort of address the Eightfold Path maybe over the summer here and there. So I thought it was a good idea to stay with the theme of the Eightfold Path and talk about the other wisdom factor on the path. So here's a really brief overview. The Eightfold Path is the Buddha's guide to ending suffering, and it's divided into 3 areas. The path includes the first section, which is wisdom or panya, and that includes right view, right intention. The second section is ethical conduct, which we're more familiar with. It's sila, and that's right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Those are the most easily approachable sections of the Eightfold Path, which make sense to us. And then next comes mental development, or samadhi, and that is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And so right intention follows right view, which is the understanding insight that suffering exists and there is a way out. And once we see clearly, the next step is choosing how to move forward. And that's where intention comes in. So let's start with a quick peek at the first step, right view. This is the aha moment, the realization that life contains suffering, dukkha, and that suffering has a cause, and that there's a way out. It's like realizing you've been trying to microwave soup in a metal bowl. Did you ever do that? Something's clearly not working, and it might be you. And so right view lays the groundwork. It's understanding reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It sets the framework, helping us understand suffering and the path out of it. But understanding alone isn't enough. We need to follow through with intention. The Samadhi Sutta, which is Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length discourses, number 9, it gives us an idea of right view, including understanding the Four Noble Truths and the law of karma. And once you've seen clearly, then you ask yourself, now what? And that brings us to step 2 on the Noble Eightfold Path, right intention. What is right intention? Right intention, also known as right thought or right resolve, is sort of where the rubber meets the road. After gaining the right view, we start aiming our mind and heart in a wholesome direction. It's not enough just to see clearly. You also have to want to move in the right direction and make a sincere effort to do so. The Buddha broke down right intention into 3 parts. The intention of renunciation, or letting go of craving. The intention of goodwill, replacing ill will with love and with kindness. And the intention of harmlessness, choosing compassion over cruelty. In another sutta in Sutta Nikaya, it's number 45.8. I actually have a reference sheet at the end. I'll post in case you want to look at any of these up. But the Buddha defines these as, and what is right intention? Being resolved on renunciation, on non-ill will, on harmlessness. This is called right intention. So let's explore these 3, not with a monk's stoic silence, but with a little laughter and some life along the way. I came up with a bunch of little stories. So first we have the intention of renunciation. I think of it as let it go, letting it go, but harder. When people hear renunciation, they often picture a bald person giving up movies and the adornments of jewelry and even romance. But renunciation isn't about becoming a dry human rice cracker. It's about giving up attachment, that gnawing desire that makes us say, I need that, or I can't be happy without this. Well, here's the spoiler alert. You can. So what is right intention? Right intention, which is also called Sammasankappa, is about aligning our motivations with the wisdom of the Dhamma. In the Pali Canon, which is the major source of the Buddha's original discourses, the Buddha describes 3 core intentions that lead toward liberation. So here they are again. The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. These aren't commands, they're directions. They're a compass pointing towards peace and freedom and compassion. So let's unpack them a little. The intention of renunciation. This isn't about giving up chocolate or swearing off online movies, unless you want to. But it means letting go of the craving that keeps us bound, especially the grasping at pleasure, control, or identity that creates suffering. In another sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle-length discourses, 19, the Buddha recalls before his awakening how he carefully examined his thoughts. We've talked about this before in the past, how he noticed his thoughts. And he examined his thoughts, and he noticed when thoughts were rooted in sensual desire, ill will, or cruelty. And then he contrasted them with thoughts rooted in renunciation and goodwill and harmlessness. He said whenever a person or a bhikkhu or a monastic frequently thinks and ponders upon, whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. That's sort of like neuroplasticity 2,600 years ahead of schedule, really. So I've got this personal story about my leather jacket. When I was just out of college in my early 20s, I had a job finally, and I was making some money, and I'd gone to Northern California from the Midwest. And I saw this leather jacket in a boutique store window, and it was sleek and buttery soft. I loved the smell of it, and it made me feel, at least in my imagination, like a mysterious woman who writes poetry in cafes and knows about wine pairings. I couldn't afford it, but I obsessed over it. I visited it like a shrine. I pictured myself in it. I even imagined bumping into an ex while wearing it. I know this is really deep Dharma. One night, laying in bed, I realized that the desire really was eating away at me. And then I paused, and I noticed how clinging had hijacked my peace. I didn't need this jacket. I wanted the identity that came with it. Renunciation isn't deprivation. It's freedom from grasping. I was kind of a wreck over a jacket. And that's when I stumbled on a teaching about renunciation in the Dhammapada, a very popular book of collected writings of the Buddha. It's verse 290, and the Buddha says, "If by giving up a lesser happiness, one may behold a greater happiness, let the wise person give up the lesser, having regard for the greater. If by giving up a lesser happiness, one may behold a greater happiness, let the wise person give up the lesser, having regard for the greater." So I decided to let it go. Not dramatically, just gently. And something strange happened. I felt lighter, not just emotionally. I think I actually lost 2 pounds in materialistic weight. I'm sure I did. So I didn't buy it. and I felt oddly free. Renunciation doesn't mean you can't have nice things. It means not being owned by them. It's loosening your grip so life can breathe. It isn't grim self-denial, it's the joy of letting go. The peace that comes when we no longer chase what we don't need. As the Buddha said in another one of his verses in the Itivuttaka, the mind that goes after pleasure is not freed from lust, but the mind that seeks renunciation finds peace. The mind that goes after pleasure is not freed from lust, but the mind that seeks renunciation finds peace. Now let's look at the second aspect, the intention of goodwill. Everyone's just trying to do their best, even that person that you might not like. Goodwill or metta is the active intention of kindness. This is really sort of deceptively simple. Say, I wish all beings to be happy and boom, enlightenment, right? Well, no, not quite. I remember getting a lesson in goodwill during a particularly awful drive. I was late and tired and listening to a podcast on Buddhist compassion because, of course, I'm a stereotype. And I'm at a red light when a guy in a beat-up truck cuts me off so hard that I spill my green drink on my pants and down my console. And if any of you eat green drink morning protein things, you know what happens when that stuff sticks to the carpet in your car or on your seat. So it's a true test of spiritual depth. Immediately, my inner monologue turns into this dramatic movie script. Like, do any of you know who Quentin Tarantino is? I think he wrote Pulp Fiction and a whole bunch of other kind of violent movies that I really didn't see only one of. But here I am, I'm supposed to be cultivating goodwill. So I try it out, sort of gritting my teeth by bypassing the critic, and I say, may he be well, may he be peaceful, may he get a decent turn signal. Here's the crazy part, though. It helped. Not instantly, and not perfectly. But I didn't carry the anger all day. I saw this person for what he was. A stressed out person, maybe late for work, maybe just clumsy. Just like me, he was trying to be happy and probably making a mess of it. The Buddha encouraged this mindset in the Karaniya Metta Sutta. I'm sure some of you, most of you, I think you're all familiar with it. It's the sutta where he famously said, just as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. Just as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. A couple of decades ago, a friend and I had a falling out. It was really difficult. I felt wronged and misunderstood and defensive. And I replayed that conversation in my head like a courtroom drama over and over again, and I always won. But suffering persisted. And eventually I sat quietly and remembered the Buddha's advice. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By love alone is hatred appeased. That's another verse from the Dhammapada, verse 5. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By love alone is hatred appeased. I breathed into the pain and I began to wish her well. Not because I was supposed to, but because I was tired of the burden, the pain that I felt in my heart. And I go back and visit this over and over again. It still seemed very unfair to me under the circumstances. But it's getting a little bit easier just to be tired of the burden and the pain that I felt in my heart, to simply continue letting go of my defensiveness. Goodwill doesn't mean being a doormat or excusing bad behavior. It means choosing not to add more poison to your own heart. It's deciding again and again to root for people, even when they make it hard. And I've continued again and again, holding this person in kindness, even though I felt it was bad behavior. But it's letting go of that burden that's in the heart. You might get tired of my stories. I came up with all these stories because I was on vacation in Hawaii and I didn't have to make up too much stuff in this Dharma talk. So here's another example. Once during a rough patch in a relationship, I got into a silly but heated argument over something small. I know this has happened to all of you. Coffee grounds in the sink. I mean, really. But there I was, holding my ground like it was like a war crime. Later I realized it wasn't really about coffee. It was about wanting to be heard. And the other person just wanted to feel safe. And in that moment, ill will felt so righteous, but it burned both of us. Non-ill will is the quiet courage of pausing and softening and asking, what's really going on here? Sometimes the kindest thing you can say is nothing at all. And it's also quite often the hardest thing. Just a breath, a hand on your heart, or a whispered metta phrase. And so now we come to the third section of intention, that of harmlessness. Compassion as a default setting. The third component is ahimsa, or harmlessness. This one's trickier because it's not just about actions, it's about mental habits. Have you ever fantasized about someone that you dislike getting hit with a surprise water balloon? Or maybe you wish that they came to some harm? Maybe that's just me, but I kind of doubt it. Harmlessness asks us to let go of even subtle mental cruelty. It's about compassion, not just for people that we like, but for everyone, including the person who blasts their music at 2 a.m. or the family member that weaponizes group chats. Once when I was visiting an animal shelter, I saw this tiny, trembling dog they named Peanut, who'd clearly been through a lot. And he growled at everyone. People passed him by and they whispered under their breath, too aggressive. But I went into his crate and I sat with him anyway. And I didn't try to touch him. I just sat. And after a while, he crawled into my lap, shaking, but trusting. That's when I got it. Compassion isn't about fixing or saving someone. It's about not giving up on their basic worth. even if they bark and bite and push us away. And that includes ourselves. Take a moment to think if there is someone in your life like this. Can you envision their basic worth, even if they bark or push you away? In the Metta Sutta, again, we are told to cultivate this attitude toward all beings, seen and unseen, near and far, born and to be born. Right intention means applying that same care inwardly. Practicing harmlessness is also about replacing self-hate with gentleness. If you wouldn't say it to little scared Peanut, then don't say it to yourself. One spring I was hiking a narrow ridge trail in a state park where I lived in Hawaii. There were these big redwoods there. And as the fog rolled in, suddenly everything vanished, except the path at my feet. I couldn't see where it ended, only that it kept going. That hike became a metaphor. We don't really need to see the entire road. We only need to keep putting one foot in front of the other, guided by a trustworthy intention. When we walk with right intention toward kindness, toward release, we become our own compass. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, all tremble at violence, all fear death. Comparing others with oneself, one should not kill or cause others to kill. Even our thoughts can bruise the world. Harmlessness is the practice of softening the mind so that no one, not even ourselves, gets wounded by it. So why does all this matter? You might ask, okay, but what does intention actually do? Well, imagine your mind as a garden. Intention is what you choose to plant. If you constantly water anger, greed, and selfishness, guess what grows? But if you plant kindness, wisdom, and compassion, your life blooms in a different direction. The Buddha put it clearly in another sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, MN 19, where he distinguishes between wholesome and unwholesome thoughts. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. So here it is again. Whatever a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of their mind. This is really helpful to remember when we catch ourselves thinking and pondering about something that is really not useful for us. And we realize that that is the inclination of the mind. In Tai Chi practices, the phrase is, where the mind goes, the chi follows. So right intention doesn't mean that you'll always get it right. And it's not about being perfect. It's about course correcting. Think of it like learning to play a guitar. Does anyone play an instrument? Well, I know, Margaret, you do. The other Margaret. You do too. Well, in guitar, I used to play the guitar, and at first, everything is awkward. You miss a lot of notes, and your fingers hurt, but you keep trying. And gradually, your hands know what to do, and the music comes more easily. In the same way, practicing right intention shapes your mental habits. It doesn't eliminate problems from your life, but it changes your relationship with them. And you stop reacting from impulse and start responding from intention. Right intention is a muscle. It strengthens with practice, especially when we fall short, and we will fall short. But every time we remember, every time we choose renunciation over craving, goodwill over resentment, and compassion over harm, we are walking the path. I'm going to repeat that. Every time we remember, every time we choose renunciation over craving, goodwill over resentment, and compassion over harm, we are walking the path. So these are some of my final thoughts, and hopefully the right ones. The second step of the Eightfold Path asks us to choose our inner direction again and again, with sincerity, with patience, and hopefully with a little humor. It's not about becoming a saint overnight. It's about remembering that your thoughts matter. Not because they're perfect, but because they shape your future self. In the end, right intention is less about doing the right thing and more about becoming the kind of person who naturally leans toward what's wholesome. It's about waking up in the morning and asking, what kind of seeds will I plant today? And then really trying to choose love over fear, clarity over confusion, and peace over pettiness. And if you mess up, forgive yourself. Make tea. Try again. That's the path. So let's sit for a few minutes and just let those words settle down. And I'm just going to give a short guided meditation in a few moments, just letting those words settle down. And I'll just remind you briefly that that right intention is broken down into the intention of renunciation, letting go of craving, the intention of goodwill, replacing ill will with love and kindness, and the intention of harmlessness, choosing compassion over cruelty. And so as we sit comfortably, closing our eyes or softening our gaze, once again bring your attention to the breath. Just gently noticing it move in and out. Now silently reflect, what is the intention I'm bringing into this moment? To be compassionate, to let go of craving, to replace ill will with love and kindness. What is the intention I am bringing into this moment? What am I letting go of? What am I moving toward? Now bring to mind someone that you care about and silently wish them well. May you be safe. May you be free from harm. May your heart be at ease. Now bring that same wish inward. You might want to put your hand on your heart. May I be safe. May I be free from harm. May my heart be at ease. And rest in that intention for just a few breaths. May I be safe. May I be free from harm. May my heart be at ease. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. And let's remember that right intention isn't just about behavior. It's about the direction of the heart. When we cultivate these intentions, they become the background music of our lives. We might still feel desire, anger, or fear, but we're less likely to follow them, and we're more likely to pause, more likely to choose peace. Right intention is a muscle. It strengthens with practice, especially when we fall short, and we will fall short. But every time we remember, we are sowing new seeds. So thank you very much for your practice. And may the peace and ease that you cultivate be felt by all of those with whom you come into contact. And thank you for your kind attention, for listening to the Dhamma. And we can take some time for some discussion. I have a few questions, and so I'll stop the recording and pass out this reference paper, and I'll put the questions in the chat. But first I'll ring the bell. stop the recording.